Hello, I'm Nicholas Hyatt, Investment Manager here at Wealth Club, and today I'm with Luke Finch of HG Capital to talk about investing in private software. Luke, for those who aren't familiar, could you give us a little bit more detail about HG Capital and about your own background?
Yeah, sure, Nick. So HG is probably the biggest private equity firm that no one's ever heard of. I like to say we manage about $65 billion, and we've been going for over 25 years. The reason no one's really heard of us is because what we invest in doesn't often touch the consumer. So we back boring B2B software. So the kind of stuff that makes SMEs and enterprises tick, that manages workflows, that manages data, that helps make employees' lives easier, but it's not really front page news. So it's your ERP system, it's your payroll system, it's your account system, it's compliance software. It's stuff that makes people at dinner parties nod off and turn the other direction when you're sat next to them. But for us, it's very interesting, and we think it's a great place to be investing.
And about your own background?
Yeah, so I've been at HG for nearly 14 years, so joined at the start of 2010. I head the fundraising function at HG, so we have hundreds of institutional clients from all over the world, and before that I was, for my sins, an investment banker. Well, look, software is a big market. There's lots of different kinds of software businesses, but I think there are a subset of software businesses that I find very appealing, and I think others do too, and it's those that manage sort of core business processes and core workflows for corporate customers. So I guess the most famous of those would be Microsoft, one of the biggest companies in the world and still growing incredibly strongly as it gets to $2 trillion of market cap, where people use that every day of their lives, of their working lives. But as you go into more and more specific workflows, you get thousands of software companies that really help their customers make their employees more effective and efficient, manage regulatory and compliance risk, because software can keep records better than humans can, and those kind of software companies that really add value to kind of SMEs and enterprises and help them run their own businesses. I think those are very exciting investments.
Where are you currently seeing the most interesting opportunities?
We think that any business at the moment that's supplying software that helps customers with, frankly, expensive, white-collar workers, so think bankers, far too expensive, lawyers, everyone thinks they're too expensive, but even, doctors, engineers, etc. So where you've got, very expensive, highly trained workforces, often with a lot of sort of compliance burden on them to make sure that their data's, the data integrity is right, that they're complying with all the regulations that spring up. Where you've got that, we see sort of some super interesting software companies springing up to kind of serve those kind of end markets. So, helping hospitals run more effectively, helping lawyers scan documents more easily, and relying less on paralegal, on sort of teams and teams of ever-expanding paralegals. Those kind of things, those kind of situations, I think are great investments right now, because when inflation is surging, it's expensive things that get more and more expensive, and so almost the more expensive your underlying workforce is, the more you need software right now.
So when it comes to those kinds of exciting software businesses, maybe not the right word, but exciting software businesses, is that something that anyone can invest in, or are there real advantages to scale?
Well, I think anyone can go and buy shares in Microsoft or Intuit in the US or Adobe, but these are very, very large businesses now, hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars of market cap, and are therefore, to my mind, very exposed to sort of index behavior. So, the index funds that have to buy high and sell low. So there's quite a lot of volatility in the equity markets for these big software businesses, which I think is mismatched to the underlying predictability and defensibility of their own earnings. If you want to then invest in sort of some smaller, nichier software companies, it's actually very hard to do that in anywhere but private equity.
And finally, as a high net worth investor, there's a lot of competition for your money. Why should those investors consider private software as a real priority?
Many reasons. If I sort of go macro to micro, I think private equity is, I think, a superior form of capitalism, of investing in businesses. If you look at the public markets, so much of that volatility is driven by the impact of indexation, index funds. If half of your shareholder register, by definition, has to buy high and sell low and rebalance every day, you just get huge momentum swings. That's not very helpful for the underlying businesses, so they frankly don't want to be on the public market. So that's the macro. Then, why software? Well, we've spoken about some of the attractiveness there. I think that the kind of software businesses we like combine the predictability of a bond, if you like. They're very predictable in their earnings and their cash generation, but with growth.
If you're watching on YouTube, please press like and subscribe to the channel for more.